Sometimes life breaks you open, and that is exactly where the light gets in. Today, you are going to hear the kind of story that really stays with you because it's not just about resilience, it's about rising again and again and again when every reason says you shouldn't be able to do it. This episode isn't about being tough. It's about being unmessable with. And if you have ever felt like your circumstances were defining you or wondered if it's too late to rebuild, you need to hear this one.
Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessablewith, with the podcast. I am your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is Christina Williams. She's an award-winning author, an acclaimed weight loss and transformation coach, and she is dedicated to healing the world and inspiring every individual to love themselves unapologetically and thrive. She's the founder of Imagine What I Can Be. She specializes in concierge coaching for metabolic health, weight loss, and personal transformation. So we're going to talk about that connection. And she has a critically acclaimed book called The 28-Day Runway, Your Pathway to the Healthy Lifestyle of Your Dreams. She speaks my language, I'll tell you, the dream language. Here she comes. Let's welcome her to the show, Christina Williams.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be mesmerized here.
Yeah, I know, really. Well, when you were, giving me your information and talking about all these situations that really empowered you to be unmessable with, I was like, oh, she'd be perfect for the show. So let's just talk to you. First of all, tell people how you ended up doing what you're doing. What kind of, I know it's like, tell us about your life in a few minutes. But
I will say lovingly, I'm on my fourth life, which I think is so important as we navigate and to remind folks that resilience and self-empowerment when we get in these sticky moments is so important. So I started off my journey, my first life, unfortunately, was a product of a very bad childhood. You name it, it happened. My mom, alcoholic, on drugs, taken away at 7. Instead of maybe passing through the system, I was passed around family members. And, I won't go into great detail because it's not that kind of a trauma show. I kind of found myself.
but stuff happened. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. You name it, there's a file for it.
Yeah.
And so in high school, I met I was very fortunate. I think we all have a Mrs. Hughes in our life that shows up at some point. And I was just one of those kids where I never turned in my homework. I was going home every day. My palms are sweating just thinking about it, to a very abusive household. And, I kind of learned very early on to wear this uniform. And so it wasn't a mystery looking back that I found myself in ROTC, which, is like a high school version of the military. And I found my first family that I could feel safe and feel trust. And so that led me still now in my second life into, I put myself through school. My undergrad was a military academy, and I was one of 8 women, if you can imagine it. I remember calling for alumni, to these 90-year-old men that, were seafarers. I went to Merchant Marine Academy, and he says, they let women in the school now? And I said, yes, sir, they do, and we're going to need some money. Yeah, so worked my way through that, and then kind of found myself shuffling around corporate America. And at the time, and when I left corporate America, I was managing almost $1 billion worth of shit, from third-party contracting to capital acquisitions. And I was being asked to call some mom and pop shops and get out of some contracts that I had negotiated because they wanted their P&L to look good. And I just thought, this is not resonating with my soul. I need to leave. And at the time I was 30. So if you can imagine, I was part of I had lived overseas. I'm from California. I live there now. But I've been all over the world on someone else's dime, which was amazing. But I just thought, okay, I need to find another calling. And so that segued me into my third life, which I ran a startup, a beauty manufacturing startup. My girlfriend of mine had cancer, and she was going to get these hair extensions, and they were like, at the time, $2,000. And that's crazy. And so I went into Tap Plastics, and I started researching plastics that worked like metals, and segued into what shouldn't be a long story. 7 years of running this manufacturing company, and I was so unhappy. I spent every dime that I'd owned because I really believed in myself, and I believed in this product. I believed in the team that I built, and it was really tough. And at the same time, when you're running a company, especially in the startup space, you really cannot push people farther than their limits than you can push yourself. And so I found my way into bodybuilding and really became this catalyst for this interesting kind of weird therapy, because let's face it, you're driving to the gym to hurt yourself. And
I didn't think of it that way, but I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's the truth. And so, I would drop my daughter off at school, and who's now going to the same military academy I went to for my undergrad. Yeah, so now we're just trauma bonding, which is great. But in saying that, I really found the first year was really difficult, because although I was able to help people transform the outside, I wasn't growing them on the inside, and I felt like I was making monsters. And I'll save this story for later, but I just thought, God, what have I done? And I thought, I need to get some skills. And so then I went back to school. I got my master's in nutrition. I spent 2 years, and this is back in 2011, where if you told someone you were coaching, they thought you ran a baseball team. Coaching was not a thing. And so then I went, and at the same time I'm getting my master's, I'm taking this behavioral management class, really to try to grow folks on the inside at the same rate I was helping them grow on the outside. And I ended up, selling off parts of the business and coaching full time, because maybe if my mom met someone like me, maybe things would have turned out a little bit different. So that's really how I look at coaching now, is even on the really difficult days, I don't get to quit. I don't get to be less than, because there's so many people in this world that truly really need help. And maybe if the Mrs. Hughes of the world could find their people easier, then maybe they'd, hurt people. And so if I can be part of this story that helps to be this Maya Angelou rainbow moment, then that is my calling, and I'm very thankful for it.
That's beautiful. Wonderful. So now you work with people on, obviously personal transformation, so mindset stuff, but also metabolic health. And talk to us a little bit about the marriage of those two things. I mean, obviously they impact each other for both ways, it's like a chicken or egg. But tell us a little bit about your methodology and how you see the synergies.
Gosh, it's so interesting. I created a tool called the Serenity Sphere. Back when I went to a school in New York for intuitive nutrition, and they gave us this thing called the Circle of Life. And it talks about these 12 key areas that we call primary food. And when any one of these areas is out of balance, we end up looking to secondary food for nutrition. And it really kind of was like this perfect storm of everything coming together, because I just thought, this is it. This is it right here. Because it's so true. And food, although is a very legal drug, it's everywhere. Everyone has their hand in trying to make money in a piece of it, which makes the system want to collapse on itself. But it could be anything from sex, drugs, alcohol, over
Caffeine.
exercising, overworking. I would be the overworker, which I think maybe you could identify with me with this. And so I
work 13 hours a week. No, seriously, I work 13 hours a week, and that's what I coach my clients on, freedom and all of that.
Yeah. So the synergy of those together, and really, is to try to figure out, okay, which one of these areas is too far out of balance.
Yep.
So we can focus on bringing some inspiration in that area, which then can take the weight off the system. And then once you can take some of those, I call them rocks, in your backpack, once our backpack gets a little lighter, then we can make a little bit more room for improvements in the other areas. Like it sounds like, joy, right? When's the last time someone really focused on bringing joy into their life, or do they know what that word really means? And so I'd say that although nutrition it's math, it's blood work, those are the science things that I love, but it really is trying to uncover, because you can do nutrition for someone and you can map it to their physical blood work and their body composition. But if you don't understand the lifestyle dynamics of what is really causing them to kind of lean into the other side, you won't make as fast of traction. And that's really where the big moves happen in folks' lives. So.
And there's so much now like being pumped into social media, blah, 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 or maybe it's just my account that they're pumping it into about
it's
cortisol detoxes and all this. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't even know, because I eat healthy, and when I'm in Europe, everything is amazing, and not like the kind of processed food that we have mostly in the States. And the wheat works, the bread works. It's not the doubled over in pain after you have a sandwich, But talk about that cortisol thing, because, we all have cortisol, obviously, but what does it mean to detox your cortisol?
What's really interesting about that, and it's so important, especially with folks who are struggling with autoimmune conditions and any kind of gut bacteria issue, is because more is not more. And let's take someone, for example, with Hashimoto's. They might want to go and exercise and kind of blow out the cobwebs, and they're thinking that in a traditional setting, that's the answer. And in fact, it is the opposite. And it has to do with your adrenals and your cortisol. And so what happens is if imagine that you're coming home to your partner and your partner is carrying arms filled with groceries, and you go, hey, let me just take this and just put it on top. That's really what's happening with our system, especially for women are going to see these negative impacts. That really what we need help with is understanding what's in this
grocery bag.
These grocery bags, and try to take them out, because what happens with our cortisol, and even the testing from adrenal fatigue, and here in the US, it's almost like they think it's like voodoo math, it's never been medically proven. And I'm very much up on, I spend, I'd say, probably a fourth of my time in CBI, which is a data repository for medical journals and studies and findings. But cortisol is really that trigger. And it's what I call my roommate, this voice that lives in your head. If our parasympathetic nervous system is feeling like she's in fight or flight, that's going to raise the adrenals, the cortisol. And I just really want people to kind of think about walking home with this filled bag with groceries and just ask myself, okay, does it feel more healthy to put more strain on this already full set of hands? Or should I try to get some help in removing some things and set some stuff down? Because again, more is not more. And that's really where it starts.
So when you work with people on metabolism, right? Because I know you have a whole system that you work with people on, and your book, the 28-day runway. What would you say for those people listening? Let's say, what is something they could take action on today that would improve their metabolic health, maybe reduce their cortisol? I don't know if those two are connected really, because this is not my expertise in terms of nutrition. It's yours, but you tell us what could we tell people on this show so they walk away with an action item?
Absolutely. I think calls to action in our life, it's what I call us. If you could get up every day and define your one health success story, you will go to sleep feeling accomplished instead of like a piece of crap, right? Because, we can all feel like we're overloaded. And so if I was going to pick one key area to try to help folks with and have the largest impact, it is sleep. And the reason I say that, I love this quote from Dr. Asif, who's a Stanford doctor here. He says, sleep is the single most important attribute of health, and there is no exercise program or a nutrition plan that can make up for its absence. And so when you talk about cortisol, it's a great line, right? I quoted him in my book because it was was so perfect. It's really to first focus on sleep. And it sounds so easy, and it is not. And so, couple key takeaways. And that's why you'll see a lot of gadgets, the Aura Ring, the Whoop. I could probably go on ad nausea. They're really focusing on what they're claiming is cortisol, stress, but they're really looking
HRV,
at
blah,
your,
blah, blah.
yeah, they're really looking at your sleep. And, if you're lucky enough to have a housekeeper, we don't stay in the kitchen while she's cleaning the kitchen, for example. And so, we're supposed to leave while they're cleaning up. And so if you can think of sleep as that time where you're getting out of the way and your body is cleaning up the mess that we made for it during the day, that really happens during sleep. Now,
That's great.
if someone's not able to focus on sleep, the next best thing you can do is drink yourself skinny, because
Water. Now,
yes.
now I got to drink a sip of water because you're making me think of it. Okay.
So this right here, literally, sleep is a bigger thing, and it also has to do with it's so much, because it's environmental, it's mental.
Well,
it's
I have a husband
physical.
who snores, so I do understand the environmental part of the sleep thing. But it's interesting. I should introduce you to a very good girlfriend of mine who's also a client, who has a podcast called Sleep is a Skill, and she's a sleep specialist. And that's what she does, is she
Yes.
works with people to elevate the performance in terms of sleep. And people are, once they meet her, they're like, oh my God, Molly Eastman, you are a miracle maker, because it has such a far-reaching impact on everything.
Absolutely. And we take it for granted. I think until you hit this certain age, I live in downtown San Francisco, and I cannot wait to say no to things, and I have a scarcity mindset around sleep. That is how important it is to me. And so to get folks to that area, that space, and again, if you can't make an impact there, then water, I would say on average. And the reason I know this is because for every client, everyone I work with, they're connected to what's called a RENFO, which is a body composition scale. And the most impactful change I can help them acquire right away is to not hold on to excess body weight, because you're storing water.
Yeah.
My little camels, and it's a balance. Part of the reason why this is clear is because it's a feedback loop of how am I doing. And so it's even teaching them those skills of.
And for those of you that are listening to this podcast, not watching it, when she said this is clear, she's talking about her water bottle, so that she can see how much she had so far today.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I sometimes forget that some people just listen to podcasts. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. And so, if you need this incentive, being able to look at it, it's almost like an email. I don't know how you manage your emails, but definitely with my text messages, I work through them until they're done. And so if you think about water, it really needs to be this feedback of how am I doing? And it is challenging, because every day it resets itself, and the body really needs to create a synergy in between our roommate and ourself. The body will normalize. It needs 3 to 4 days to consider this its new constant.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I can share that with you, because I put people on stage, as a professional bodybuilder and as a coach who's been in this space for, since 2011. You're taking some of the most interesting specimens that most people will, and people don't need to go to that level, but they're at 3-5% body fat, and so you really get to see these science
my finger's
effects.
About that. That's about what my finger is.
Right. And and to each their own. It's the key is to do it in a healthy way, but really to see the impact of sodium and the impact of water on the physical body. I mean, that's really what bodybuilders are doing, is manipulating this chemical balance in between the two to get that aesthetic look on stage for the judges. And so,
interesting.
I'm very lucky that I have that experience, and that I've been able to see it firsthand. And you talk about cortisol. There was once where I was walking on stage and I was really angry about something personal that was going on. And the way that bodybuilding works is that you're judged in the morning and then you come back at night and you go through the whole thing again, but they announce the winners. And I was so stressed that I'm walking on stage in like, a first place physique. And as I start to get angry because I can see that someone that's supposed to be in the crowd is not in the crowd, my body literally pulled the water from my muscles into my subcutaneous skin region. And then so I went from looking very fit and very tight to looking very soft and very watery, and what would give the
Wow,
appearance
that's
of cellulite
amazing, actually.
like that. And so it's actually something, because I coach a lot of celebrities, I can't have you sitting next to Brad Pitt, as your cortisol and your roommates getting excited. I can't have that transition,
Well, for me,
or
it
on the
would
red
be more
carpet.
like Andy Garcia, but okay. You know?
I love it. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
But in saying that, it's to understand that chemical reaction, and then how we can really relax those things. So, for example, I was so excited to come on today with you. I was like, okay, we need to calm the roommate down, and so I just went and took a little bit of magnesium, just to take that little edge off of my coffee this morning, but to just settle down my roommate so that she can relax when we're
I
together.
like it. I like it. I
Yeah.
love the analogies and how you relate it to things that are so relatable. And
Right.
one question I always ask people, and that I told you I was going to ask you, is if you could recall a situation in your life that was really difficult, like what I would call as a messable with moment. And for some people, those moments take us out of the game completely. But a moment or a situation or a time period where you were dealing with something so difficult, but you were able to transcend it and emerge what I call being unmessable with, which, you and I haven't worked together, but it doesn't mean being tough. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean not spilling your feelings. It's about being able to stay true to your purpose, to your vision, and act from there rather than get thrown into survival, fight, flight, freeze mode and start reacting. So what
Yeah.
comes to mind if anybody who is successful and who has been on the planet more than a certain amount of time has had plenty of these, but what comes to mind when I ask you?
I mean, do you want the easy one or do you want the dark one?
I want the
Because
one you want to share.
I think it's very real. There was a moment where I mean, I would love to have a 13-hour work week. I can tell you I was
That took
sitting,
me many years of
yeah,
practicing what I preach to design that, but I can talk to you about that separately, but go ahead.
yeah. I'll give you the one that came to mind when you asked it to me. It's a very real moment, and I was sitting in the bathtub. I was running a team of 25 athletes, and I was also running a very full-time startup. And I had spent all of my money. I cleared out my stocks, my bonds. I got the company funded.
Mm.
And it was just this moment where I realized this is not going to work. And I was sitting in the bathtub and I just thought, I could go and leave the car running right now. And maybe I could just do a complete reset. And I sat there as the water was running and I faded off. And I just thought, what did you do, Christina? What did you do? Why did you do this? Why did you spend all your money? Are you stupid? And then I had this team and I love these people, but like I said, I was making monsters.
Yeah.
And I say that because, unfortunately, when you really don't focus on the inside and you only focus on the outside and you're surrounded by just hands everywhere taking, you have no hands left. And what pulled me out, probably a little slap in the face was really my daughter.
Hmm.
And, I don't remember how old she was at the time, but I just thought, I mean, even my grandfather had invested in my company. And I just thought, look what you did to people. They believed in you and you let them down. You let yourself down. You're not as smart as you thought you were. And then I just thought, oh God, I'm not allowed to get myself here again. And I don't. life, and this, I talk about analogies. You approach life like a drowning swimmer. Have you ever seen, I was obviously in the military, merchant marines, so you have to swim a mile in a pool to graduate. Obviously, if something happens, you got to swim out.
Yes.
And so I just remembered this moment of, okay, you now have to approach everything in your life like you would approach a drowning swimmer. And so, for the folks just listening, the way that you approach a drowning swimmer is you approach them feet first. And running a startup, I got really, really good at being patient, realizing that everyone shows their it card if you can just wait it out. And the deferment of decisions is usually the best. And so, in this moment where I'm sitting in the bathtub and I'm thinking about my daughter, I thought, okay, you don't get to check out. This is not allowed. And you better figure out how you're going to make good on all of this. And I think that's really when, going back to school and realizing I don't have these skills. I have life skills and I have survival skills, but I need skills that rebuild, because secretly I needed to rebuild myself in that moment. And that's really what I set out to do. And I needed help.
Yeah, well, I think that's a key thing. What you're saying is, like, people try and figure things out in their head. And I always say, don't figure it out, work it out with people in conversation, because there's nothing in your head. In your head got you here. So like, we're going to now go to the same library. That's crazy,
Yeah. There's a great book called Untethered Soul. And that's where this roommate analogy comes from. And, our roommate gives us the best advice ever. But if you think about it with your friends, 1 minute she likes someone, and the next minute she's like, oh, that girl's not good for us. And so she's also a fair weather friend. And so to understand the difference between being able to take control and to get those outside voices that are a lot smarter than I am, and to then understand, like, okay, roommate, quiet down a little bit. I hear you. I see you. I acknowledge you. But it sounds like we need to invite some other voices, because if I lose myself in the two, we can't find ourselves back in that bathtub moment.
Yeah, exactly. And tell me a little bit about your Serenity Sphere assessment tool. I know you're going to offer it to our listeners, or I think you are. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes.
I don't want to say. Okay, yes. Good. But tell us about it and what your vision is with that, because I know you have an intention to get it to a larger audience, which we're happy to help you with and get it to our audience. But tell us about it.
Yeah, the Serenity Sphere it speaks to the primary food that we talked about earlier. It wasn't good enough just to identify these areas that make a whole, happy human being. I want to give people the real, honest questions to provoke thought. And so what I did is I spent the last 2.5 years, it took me 6 years to publish my book. And it's because I had to, with any project, and this is, if this, our folks are ambitious leaders, nothing is a single line journey. You have to pick things up and set it down, and that's okay. The hope is that you pick it back up again. And, so after I finished my book, I wrote in it that they were going to get this Serenity Sphere. And so that really pushed me to finish it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I think with AI, now, and I have some clients where they're like, did you build this? Did you write this? And I have to say, yes, I did, with my blood, my sweat, and my tears, since that bathtub moment. And, and so it is a series of questions. It's an assessment that takes you through these 12 key areas of your life. And so I'll give you a few: finances, community. Do you have friends? Your love life, how you view your education or your skill set for the job, quote unquote, you have today and the one you have tomorrow, right? So that's your career. How do you feel about your work environment? Nutrition, are you making time and not just Uber Eatsing everything? I don't know. They have I know you're in Paris. So is it
They
as
have
big as it is?
Deliveroo and Uber Eats. I can't figure out how to get Deliveroo on my phone for some reason. It doesn't work. So my husband cooks for me every night.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing
Oh,
because we have a
amazing.
market right outside, like an outdoor market, and the food is
Yeah.
it's like real food.
Yeah, the real farmers market that we're desperately in need of here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
heaven.
Yeah.
It's quite a blessing, I have to say.
Yeah. And so, the goal around these 12 key areas is, again, to ask the right questions. And I'll tell you, I've seen it can be very triggering, but that's really the goal is not to trigger. The goal is to say, this is the area where I'm feeling the most uncomfortable, which is leading me to self soothe that is probably causing pain in other areas. And so the goal is to ask the right questions that you can't Mother Teresa around. And then to say, okay, this is a snapshot of our life. And then to inspire areas to bring the most impactful area in their mind into balance.
Hmm.
That's really the key. And it's to give them some time back, to take some rocks out of their backpack. But, it's like nutrition. If I were to ask someone something, they'd say, oh, no, I eat healthy. Or I drink a lot of water. Well, if you can't measure it, then you can't track it. And if you can't track it, then you can't make a plan towards, where really is it at? And so that's always the goal, is to figure out where's your head at right now. And sometimes it's just their perception of where they're at. I have a client, bless her heart, where her money mindset was really a challenge. And when we started working together, she starts, because she had support, because she has love in her life. We started cashing some checks. And, now she has all this money in the account, but we really weren't able to, we had to work on bringing her to present day because she still had some attachments to this old view of herself back from childhood
Hmm.
where her mom was working 2 jobs to put food in the fridge. And so I tell folks, I just gave a big talk at a financial summit, and I said, listen, I can throw a bunch of money in your account and I already know what you're going to do with it. Women, I love you. We're going to buy some clothes. We might buy some makeup. Guys are going to reward themselves and they're going to make bigger purchases. And then you won't really know where to make an impact. And so, it's really not about the money. It's about creating balance in our life and trying to understand, how do I use this money now to buy back time? Because that's really where the value of money comes in. So that I can get some more time for myself, get some more time for my family. Where would I use it? How would I spend it? And how do I feel about it? So yeah, it's the goal of the Serenity Sphere is really to uncover where do they think they're out of balance and then inspire calls to action and support to try to bring them a little bit closer to the middle, which is handy.
Wonderful. Well, we'll have it in the show notes for the link to go do it. I'm going to go do it right after I finish this conversation with you. And I
Awesome.
look forward to discovering what there is to discover from doing the assessment. And is there anything
Thank you.
else you want to let our listeners know or where to find you? I'll have everything in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about that. But what
Yeah,
else?
thank you. I think if I can leave anyone with a first call to action, which I think is so important, we started this show and you said, thank you for my time. It's so valuable. And I feel the same. I think today in our world, we really need some hope and some inspiration. And, I think that's my biggest desire for the Serenity Sphere is that we can be reminded that we can find inspiration. Motivation, I think, as a bodybuilder, it's kind of a bunch of crap. What we need to do is inspire people and to show them that there is a way forward. And I just hope that they've been able to take a key takeaway, whether it's sleep inspiration, whether it's water, or whether it's trying to learn more about themselves, that, you know, our time today help them try to get a few more days where they find hope and they want to keep fighting the good fight because
Yeah.
we cannot have bathtub moments. Can't
No,
have those
well,
egos.
or if you have them, you have to have a way out of them, which is, I always say it's not about being like never having anything mess with you, but how quickly can you shift from reaction to creation is the
Yeah.
muscle to build.
completely.
because things are going to happen. The stock market's going to do whatever, the politics are going to do whatever, your ex is going to do whatever, your kids are going to whatever. But then how do you respond versus react? And that's a matter of muscle memory, just like, building that muscle like you do.
Yeah. What I'll say with that, and it's having, coaching, I'll say the very top, we can't have a Britney Spears moment on television, those are no's. And so if I can inspire some more thought to the listeners, one of the ways that they can focus on rebounding more quickly in their own environment, it's what I call a reset, is to look at your senses that you find the most powerful. And for example, mine is words of affirmation is my love language. And look what we do for a living, right?
Yeah, really.
But in saying that, I have this Buddhist monk meditation that I listen to. Because I'm essentially, my reset is these words, and it just so happens it's like 440 hertz, which also feels good to my my psyche, my parasympathetic nervous system. But my reset, because it's auditory, is I found this this meditation, and I can listen to it for like 3 minutes, and it is a complete reset for me. For some folks, maybe it's smell, so find that lavender smell, and you can rub it on the inside of your wrist, you can put it on your neck. Maybe if it's vision, if it's what you're seeing, I would encourage them to get a revolving photo album, which can live as a live vision board. But if they want to quickly work on their reset, figure out what their first, like, most powerful sense is to them, and then to find a way to inspire that movement with that sense. It will literally be the quickest, most impactful reset that you can get, because it's special to just you. So yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and share your passion, your purpose, your impact with people. And for those of you listening, if you got value out of today's episode, please rate, review it, but most of all, share it with somebody that you think it would make a difference with, somebody, maybe even somebody who might be having a bathtub moment, and you want to pull them out of that bathtub and into a world of inspiration and action and fulfillment. You never know who you could make a difference with today. So if you haven't even have a thought about it, share it with those people. And thanks again, Christina. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Be Unmessablewith, with the podcast.
Christina reminded us that your past does not disqualify you. In fact, it might be the most powerful tool that you've got, whether it's asking for help, getting honest about what's not working, or just drinking that first glass of water. Start now, because your reset starts the moment you decide it does. And if you need a little help doing that, I've got your back. Go grab my free instant reset guide. It's packed with the exact practices that I use and coach all my clients to use to shift from reaction to creation in moments. The link is right below. And then if you want to keep the momentum going, watch the next episode right now. My name's Josselyne, and I will meet you in the next video.